Thanks for hanging out. In this video, I'll show you how I make this beautiful little drop front desk. Let's get after it. So before we get into the build, I just wanted to run through the specs of this and just a couple of the features of this drop front desk that I've made. So the overall width is 650 millimeters or around about 26 inches. The overall height is around about 500 millimeters or about 20 inches. The depth off the wall is 7 inches deep including the top, or around about 175 millimeters. Without the top, it's 150 millimeters off the wall, or around about 6 inches. The shelves inside have been recessed in around about 10 millimeters or around about 3/8 of an inch. That serves two purposes. It just gives it a nice little look, just being set back in, and also gives clearance for the chain. The top itself has this moulding on the outside, and that is to make it look like a picture frame. The little girl who I made this for is keen to put some pictures or photos inside the base of the front here, so that when it's shut, it looks like a picture hanging on her wall. The other features of the top are that it's held in place with this chain as opposed to stays. Where I am, I couldn't find stays that I liked or that I thought were going to work with how I wanted this to be finished, and so I've decided to go with chain. And I've got two little magnetic catches in each corner just to be able to hold it up when the top is shut. The hinges are flush hinges, so they're not snap hinges like you would get on a kitchen cupboard door. They just sit nice and flush, but what they allow the top to do when it's up is to also sit flush all around the outside as well. So that's a bonus for the hinges. It means that access into the bottom shelf here is not restricted or impeded by the top being too high or too low or something like that. It's all nice and flush, which I really like. I really like the contrast with the black chain and the black screws on the white background, and I'm going to use black screws when I attach it to the wall in the next few days. So with that, let's get to the build. To secure the cabinet to the wall, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up some little tabs which I'm going to recess into the back of the cabinet. What I'm doing now is I'm just going to countersink the holes just so that when I install it I get a nice flush finish on the back and it will sit nice and flat against the wall. I'm just going to cut the 4 of these apart just with an angle grinder, and then I'm just going to tidy up the edges on the sander. Just getting ready to start making some cuts. Going to cut the 2 sides, the top and the bottom, and the flat panel which will fold down to be able to work on. Alright, let's get this glued up. Alright, getting set up to cut the holes for the hinges. So I've got myself a little backstop here, and I've marked on the sheet where the centre hole of the bit needs to go to be able to drill these holes. So this should go fairly smoothly. I'm just going to use a little clamp just to hold it down. Let's see how that fits. Perfect. Yep, excellent. Very happy with that. There's some fine adjustments on the hinge itself that you can use just to make the last little fine adjust, but that should be perfect. We'll check it against the carcass in a minute. So I've just got a couple of little press-in magnets, and these are the receivers that I'm going to just recess into here just so that it's sit nice and flush. So I've just got my Forstner bit, 20mm or around about a 3/4 of an inch Forstner bit just set up in the drill press, and just spot it basically so that this will just sit flush with the surface and provide a nice finish. That would be perfect. I'm just getting ready to drill the holes for the press-in magnets. These are going to be very, very close to the edge of the MDF, and I am just being careful to try not to get a hole that's too tight so that it will split the edge, and I'm also trying to make sure that the hole's not too loose. The other thing that is going to happen is that on the front side of this, as it's sitting up facing you, there will be a frame that'll go around the outside. So what I'll do is I'll install that frame before I actually press these in, and it'll all be glued around the edge, and hopefully that will help with a little bit of the strength in making sure that those edges don't break out. Perfect. Okay, so I'm ready to start to cut the pieces for the shelves that are going to go inside the unit. We're going to assemble the shelves now and get those glued and screwed together, and then we're going to put them into the main carcass. Just using a little corner clamp. These are only a 1/2 inch thick, 12mm section, so I just want to just give myself a little bit of help while I'm just screwing these together. Ready to install the hinges into the door and the cabinet itself. What I've gone with are these little flush hinges. The thing I like about these hinges is that when the lid pops up, it sits flush with the cabinet itself, but also it sits flush with the bottom of the cabinet. So there's nothing that you need to do to be able to adjust that. They sit in there nice and flush, and then when the cabinet is shut, as you can see, it sits beautifully and flush against the bottom there, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so what I'm going to start to do now is get the chain ready to install, which is what is going to help support the top when it's down. So basically, I'm going to install a piece of chain just like that. So what I want to do is I just want to measure out where I want it on here. I want it not quite in the centre, but I don't want it right out to the edge as well. I want the chain to be able to take a fair bit of the weight of anything that's sitting on top of here, not the hinge, which is why I'm going to put it a little bit closer to the centre. Need to make sure that I install it back far enough so that when the lid comes up, the chain sits exactly like it is here, nice and neatly inside the inside of the top. And I probably want to try to avoid having the screw that I'm going to use to hold it being right in line with that shelf there. Then the top is a little bit less critical, but I just want to make sure that they're all exactly the same and all the same distance apart. So we'll take a few measurements and get this ready to go. So the good thing about these hinges is there's a little bit of adjustment that you can have in them, which is great. So I can actually line up the top nice and neatly. That's certainly going to be close enough for now. I might do some fine adjustment when the unit is actually installed, but otherwise happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to install this moulding on the front face of the cabinet itself. So I'm going to miter the corners, join it all the way around so that it looks like a faux picture frame. We've got all those pieces glued in, so what we'll do is let that dry, and then once that's dry we'll be able to just finish sanding that down, getting it smooth, just putting a little bit of wood bog in some of these cracks just to be able to make it nice and smooth. And then that's the picture frame front for the desk. What I'm going to do is, just so that the main part of the desk itself sits nice and flush against the wall, I'm just going to rebate these in just a little bit. So let's get the router set up and let's get that done. Happy with that, that's nice and flush now, so that'll sit nice and flat against the wall. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to get all these just marked, all the holes marked, and then drilled out. So one of the last operations that I need to do is I'm just going to put some finger pulls in the top of the door. Just going to mark these out, and I've got the router set up ready to go, just with a quarter round bit, and we'll get those knocked out. So now when that's closed, you've just got a nice little finger pull there to be able to just open the cabinet. Okay. Time to sand it and get it ready for sealer and undercoat. Okay, so I've sanded everything down, everything's nice and smooth. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and fill all these screw holes up with some putty. So I've sanded this down, I've bogged all the holes. I'm just going to put a coat of sealer, primer, undercoat on there as well, just to be able to help the top coat adhere to it nicely. Let's get that done. Primer's all now nice and dry. I'm just going to hit it with some 240 sandpaper just to flatten it off, ready for the top coat. So I've finished sanding everything, I've given everything a wipe down. Just going to use some rattle cans of gloss white paint to give this a go. So let's do that and see how it turns out. The paint's now dry on this. It's now time for final assembly. Let's get to it. That's the drop front desk project, all done, ready to install. Overall, I'm happy with it. I think the little girl I've made it for is going to be happy with it. Looking forward to the next project. If you enjoyed the video, a like is always appreciated. Any comments or questions, feel free to leave those below. If you would like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing.